Danse, hello, and welcome to the Matriarch Movement Podcast. I'm your host, Shayla Olette Stonechild, and today on the Matriarch Movement Podcast, I'm honored to welcome an entrepreneur, artist, designer, mother, and cultural community scholar whose work has become synonymous with empowerment, innovation, and cultural reclamation. Vina Brown is everything connected to her ancestors. It's carried by her grandmothers, her mothers, her aunties, and she's also a weaver, a beader, and a trauma-informed yoga instructor, and a full-time artist whose jewelry has been featured on the runways of New York Fashion Week, of Santa Fe Indian Market, and most recently, Vancouver Indigenous Fashion Week. I had the opportunity to see her designs last night. It was a beautiful show. Congrats on that. If you just want to introduce yourself to the audience, where you come from, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, Gayasika, thank you for that beautiful intro and the welcome. And first of all, I just thank you for, Gayasika, for asking me to do this with you, because it means a lot. Like, I love the show and I just really appreciate everything you do. It's just so great, it's just spreading this message. So yeah, I just want to say, Yoistochwa relatives, Wawachtus, Glakwas Gilwaks, Clanukwa, Heishok Nukwa. My name is Glakwas Gilwaks, which means Copper Canoe Woman. That's the name of my brand also. And, but my Gumsiwa Gala, or my, settler name would be Vina Brown, my English name. And, so we kind of use both. Like, I flow between the two because people are like, "Are you Copper Canoe Woman?" And I'm like, "Yes, literally I am. That's my name." So it means a lot to kind of ground. I chose that name for my brand because I wanted to stay grounded and connected to my ancestors and my culture and my people, and also for accountability purposes and responsibility. Because as we move in the world, I was like, people were like, "Well, what are you going to call your beadwork? What are you going to call what you're doing?" And I was thinking of a name, and I was like, "Well, this is who I am, and I really want to see my culture represented, and what better way than the story of my name and the name and who I am." And that's where my rights are too. I have inherent rights from the name. So I really take that with a lot of, there's a lot of beautiful privilege with that, but there's also a lot of responsibility, and it keeps me grounded, and it keeps me, I guess, culturally humble, which is and the relational accountability. So yeah.
It's a big name. Did you get gifted that name when you were younger?
Yeah. So it's two-part name. So the Glakwas part is a female copper shield, and that was added and put on me in 2017 in a family potlatch when I was initiated into our Jayaka, which is our most secret, sacred ceremony. And then, but when I was born, in 1986, my dad and other men from our community were paddling the first canoe in almost 100 years, cedar dugout carved canoe. And my mom was pregnant with me, and he was paddling down, and he was a 22-year-old kid. I think about that now, and they brought back this technology of a canoe, and he wanted to do it because Expo, the World Fair, was happening in Vancouver, and they were highlighting and showing it was transportation, and they put a call out to Indigenous communities we want you guys to participate. He's like, well, let's show the first form of transportation here on the coast, which was our highways, where the water was up and down the coast, Alaska, further up, all the way down. They my grandpa said we went down to South America, we were traveling. And so my great granny gave me that name because I was literally born. My dad jumped off the canoe in Port Hardy, jumped on a plane. They didn't have a lot of money, so all the canoe crew gave him some money so he could fly to go see my mom. Oh my gosh. Watched me get born, and then flew back and jumped back on the canoe, and then we met him on the shores in Vancouver, here where we're at right now. And so it was really cool because my great granny said that's why I'm giving her the name Gilwaks, which is the feminine version of an ocean going canoe. And that was my child name. And then when I got initiated, my family added the Glakwas, which is the copper shields represent ancestors. They represent wealth. And I carry copper for my family. So when we potlatch, I dance with the copper shield. I dance with my brother. I'm a caretaker. I'm a copper carrier. And it's called the Kinkilachla is the role. And so it's a really strong, heavy name. But I feel like I was empowered by my family that they wouldn't have given me that if they didn't think that I could, caretake it. So I really tried to remember that part of it too, even in my business and stuff. So
yeah. No, thank you for sharing that. That's such a beautiful story. And it really anchors us into like even this land here on the unceded Coast Salish territory. And to know that a name you've been carrying for your whole life is pretty beautiful, but also like a big responsibility. I'm curious also how it's shifted people that have also been in contact with Copper Canoe women and like their experience with that. Because to be honest, I didn't know it was your name. Like I thought it was your brand.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that that's the thing, right? Because people are like, so are you Copper Canoe woman? And kind of what I've been, Copper Canoe woman has really taken on this own kind of thing. And I'm really happy about that because for me, it's about creating systems and pathways for the next generation. So if you could be Copper Canoe woman, like anyone could. And if you've seen my collection, that was my first solo collection. When I was making each piece, I was thinking about different matriarchs in my family and I was thinking of their essence. And so that's what Copper Canoe woman is about. It's all about that we all have this divine feminine energy, men, women, theys and thems, like wherever you are on the spectrum of like gender, that we come from feminine and we come from masculine. And that's not just like, new age stuff. That's like teachings I received from my elders around like we are all part of creation and we come into the world in that spiral that happens when you weave the two together. That's how we come into the world. And so we can't be like men can't be too masculine and women can't be too, we have both. And so for me, what I'm seeing as a young woman growing up in an Indigenous community, what I saw was these values and ethics that were being taught to us, but not always acted on or mirrored. And it's because of, and then later learning about trauma, learning about historical intergenerational trauma in my own life and lineage and how that played out. I learned my empathy and compassion grew so big. And how I bring balance back isn't this feminist perspective of like women need to be equal with men. I'm like, no, what we need to bring back is our medicines. And what needs to heal is the masculine doesn't have to dominate or be up. There's no hierarchy in it. It's cyclical. And so that's what we're returning to. So that's what Copper Canoe Woman is about. She's not like this, brand that says this. She's about like empowering the divine feminine energy in all people.
I love that. And I feel like that kind of mirrors my intention with Matriarch movement too. It wasn't to say like we replace men within their roles. It's coming back to that like balance and that homeostasis and like seeing the gifts within both sides and knowing that those are energies. And that's why I love like two-spirit people too, because it's like the balance of both. And my granny talked about two-spirit people. My late granny Elsie Robinson, who was an amazing basket weaver, she said that they had a special place in our communities, the Nuučaan, and she said that they were special because they could understand both sides. Exactly.
And that not everyone did. And that's why they were so sacred and they had like a role in our communities. And she also talked about the hupa, which is, she would call us that, that was it meant my sun and my moon. And she said the sun is masculine, right? So beautiful. I know. I call my son that too. I was like, you're my hupa son. And so the sun is the masculine and the moon is the feminine. And that's when she talked about men are both, women are both, we flow. And I was like, later in life, that teaching stuck with me, but I didn't have the capacity to grasp it fully. So I realized later, I was like, oh, she was talking about like this gender spectrum, this indigenous wisdom of like flowing between the two that we've seen in nature. The day, it's all about energy, bringing life bright. And then the evening where it's like, resting and just being in like the tides and the water. And so it really is this like balance that needs to be restored. For real.
Well, and you can find it all throughout our teachings too. And I know that we all come from different teachings, but like exactly like you're saying, like the sun and the moon.
I love that.
Coming back into that balance. And you can see that through like the teachings of the pipe as well. And you can see that also through a lot of just different cultural teachings like yoga.
In yoga, like that's why I think, well, when I went to yoga, it was like, man, yoga is medicine. And I'm so grateful for the people of that lineage, the South Asian people, the Indian people that kept that alive, even despite that they were impacted by colonialism too. And because I benefited from, like, I healed through yoga. And it brought me actually back to my culture in a lot of ways.
Same.
Yeah, because I didn't see it connected me to my body somatically in a way that I hadn't been. Like, I remember going into deep meditations on the canoe but not knowing that was what I was doing.
Yeah.
I didn't have that language. So yoga helped give me that mindfulness, that language, like sadhana, my own practice, right? So I'm like, even when I'm like, so like I'm doing sadhana too, and I do my own traditional ceremonies now.
Exactly.
It's part of like that for me. And I said to young people, because I've done youth workshops and, we just do a little bit of breath work, a little body, and they're like, oh, I feel so good. I'm like, yeah, because sometimes we forget that, we need to return to the breath. And
exactly.
My sister, Gatawa, she's doing language, and she talks about, she did some, I call it like she's reclaiming words that maybe weren't being used, wellness words. And so one was like the breath. So she looked for the word like to take breath in. So like hasit, breathe in, hasut, breathe out. And the word hasla is like literally means like to take in your spirit. And that's the root word of that. So I was like, that is just like pranayama, like in a lot of ways. Yeah. So I'm like, there is like, we have way more in common around the world with lots of different indigenous wisdom and cultures than we don't.
Totally. I know.
And they're not the same, they're distinct, but we have more in common. Yeah.
They're like two different anchor points, but I think they connect you back to the same thing. And like when I was going through my yoga teacher trainings, there was this moment I was in Mexico. I was doing a temazcal, a sweat lodge ceremony, and there was a man there, like one of the ones that was running the lodge. And I think he could read my energy, and he could tell that I was like getting overwhelmed with like, I'm learning about yoga, I'm learning about my culture, I'm learning about all these the 8 limbs, I'm learning about like and I was overwhelmed with like too much knowledge. And then he was like, Shayla, I can tell that you have like all this knowledge. First, it is a gift and you need to share it with other people, but also just because we call them different things, it all connects us to the same thing. So and I was like, okay. And then in that moment I was like, don't get so caught up on the, definitions. Language is important, but I think it's like you're saying, it's really coming back to that simplicity. And sometimes it's just connecting to your breath. And I think there's a big misconception that you have to do like a headstand in order to do yoga, when the word yoga is to yoke, it means union. And if you can breathe, you can do yoga. Yeah. If
you can breathe, if you're alive, that's such a beautiful teaching from that person that you received, because that's what I say to young people. I'm like, this is one pathway of billions.
Exactly.
And so we need to like really just understand that, and I think if we could do that more, even just like with religion and whatnot too, like be more understanding of like, we all have pathways to the creation, to the source, whatever your belief system is. But when you feel it, like you're just like, oh, this is, and that's where I felt creator and God was like on the land, like being connected to the land, like, and I didn't realize that was what it was. I was like, oh, now I do, because I have like more language, and I was like, but it's communion, right? Like you're having this communion with like the water, the land, and it's clearing things that you didn't even like, and then later you come back and you're like, man, I just feel so much better and energized. And then now literally like science and all this stuff is Western science, are like, go out to nature. It's the best thing for you. We're like, yeah, we know.
Yeah, what do they call it? Forest bathing.
Yeah.
Forest bathing.
Yeah. They're like, go out and, walk. Like nature's like, I see these things and it's like, go walk on the earth barefoot. Like my late granny, the one I was telling you, she used to say that, like, if you ever feel out of balance, just go take your shoes off and walk on the grass and you'll feel better.
I do.
Yeah, right? Because we just got to get grounded again, right? And so, I don't know. It's just funny because like you see those things or earthing, they call it earthing now.
Earthing.
But it is just this wisdom, this inherent wisdom that all human beings have. Mm-hmm. It's just been like passed on in different ways. Mm-hmm. And even with like cultures that have been like, like European settler culture or like the ones that colonial culture that come in, I always tell like when people come to me and they're like, how can I like support or be an ally and help Indigenous cause? I'm like, the best thing you can do is learn where you come from, learn your lineage, learn your history, become aware, reconnect to your earth teachings, like go back to the land and learn to like that relationship, because you can try to help and that, but if you don't have that connection, it's not grounded, it's not rooted. So.
And that's where I think it all starts. Like for me, was like really figuring out who I am, where I come from, my identity. Then I feel more anchored in what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And it gives you more like confidence and empowerment too when you know those answers to those questions.
Well, and then you've seen it too, Shayla. Like I don't know if people know, like we've known each other for a long time, like in and out through different, right. And so seeing each other in different roles in different spaces, and so like when you step into your power and you step into your like, and it's not power in like a sense of like domination. It's a power, like it's a true, authentic, like from within. It's like that healed part of you, and it comes through. Like you literally, it's like like I love that concept of dharma, right? Where they say like when you step into your purpose or your path, you become like a superhuman. Like
you do things, you really do,
because you're clearing out karmic or whatever, like things that just don't like serve you or in alignment as you heal, and then you're creating space for like, I always say that because people like. When I talk to people about healing, even people close relatives are like, I'm afraid that I won't be able to get off the floor if I go there to those places that they are carrying. But I always counter with like, yeah, I get that. It's like really, it's hard. But what if you do get off the floor and you're a lot lighter and you clear out so much of that you have so much more space for like healing and joy to just like rush in. And
you need to like let go of it. Yeah. And I think like people maybe are resistant to letting go because that is like who they know themselves to be. So it's like really like shedding your like old identity. And I've gone to like really deep and like dark and not comfortable spaces. But I also think there's like beauty and truth found in the rock bottom that you're in. You're just like, oh gosh.
Yeah.
And you have no choice but to make a conscious decision to do something different.
Totally.
I feel
100%.
Or you're just like in the same patterns. Yeah. You just keep repeating the same lessons.
Yep. Until you get it. And you might even bring that into the next life with you.
Exactly.
If you believe in that, like you'll bring it wherever you go, whatever your belief is, like because that's the thing is like we all come here to learn. We incarnate, we come here. That's what I believe. That's my belief system. It comes from my Indigenous cultural background. I'm, on my dad's side, I'm Haíłzaqv and from Bella Bella. I grew up in a small fishing village. On my mom's side, I'm from Haíłzaqv, and my grandfather was also from Dididot, so Nuučaan, also Vancouver Island. So like people right along the water, and that's really in my brand too. And I tell those stories, but I really I come from this empowered place of like, I chose this path, chose my parents, I chose to come here. I feel that and that's my belief system. And I have been guided to that. And I just really, if there's any like youth or young people out there that are listening to this and maybe you're like struggling with certain patterns or things, it's like, I just want to encourage you to, seek out support. And seek out people like mentors and people that can support you while you're on that. And don't be afraid to like make mistakes and those things too. Like we were just having a conversation at lunch before this with my friends, and I was like, we're talking about like a young person that we've seen in our community that's struggling, and we're like, and I said, but we got to give them grace. Like that is so important because you think about your younger self and like if you didn't receive the grace from the people that gave it to you, you know? And I was like, and yeah, this person's going to pay their debt no matter what. Like, we don't have to punish them further.
True.
Right? They are going to experience that. So if you're hearing that, like, you know, whatever it is, it can be scary to go there, but seek out support and find safe places and spaces so you can start to do that, because the other side of a lot of that is freaking amazing.
It is.
It's like you're just going to, you know, like catapult yourself to another like level, and you can, but it's like you kind of can only go as far as you've gone.
Mm-hmm.
Really.
And I'm curious, like how did you get to that knowing all of this?
Yeah.
Did you have a moment that was like your rock bottom, and then you
dark
were
night
like
of soul, like so many? Yeah, I did, and many times. And I think that's the thing too, is like people think it's like, oh, I've arrived. I'm like, no, I'm still working on things.
Exactly.
I'm still healing things in my body. You know, I think for me, it was like a lot. It was going to college. It was my business. Like, that was a major healer. And I think that's the other thing too, is people don't realize, like, we're talking about pathways to enlightenment or pathways to creation, but there's pathways of healing. There's billions of pathways of healing. It's not just therapy. I do therapy. Like, I love having a counselor, like someone who's, you know, non-biased, someone like that I can let me know my blind spots, help me through things that maybe I'm like struggling with.
Mm-hmm.
Me and my partner, we were struggling in a relationship. We went to couples therapy, you know, and worked on some things. And man, our son, like he's 7, and he said it. He's like, I just like that you and Dad don't fight like anymore, you know. So he's the beneficiary of that, right? So I'm like, so there's that pathway. But for me, and we, you know, we kind of started to talk about this, was entrepreneurship. That was my pathway to healing. It literally lifted me out of economic and socioeconomic poverty. I was like poor, you know, I had no money. And it was also education. Like, I went back to school and I went to a tribal college. I will sing tribal colleges' praises all day. Our Indigenous knowledge systems, our wisdoms. Like, I really, you know, we should learn to read and to write and to excel at technology and things. I was like, but like you said, you're, you know, a beneficiary of this too, is like when you know who you are and where you come from, you know, your history, it's such a powerful foundation to stand on. And whatever that path is, you can build. You get the building blocks, you know, for whatever the way you're making the impact in the world. And so for me, I tried tribal college, like when I was living here. I tried college. I went to like Capilano University, didn't work. I went to Bellevue Community College in the United States at 18, like fresh out of high school, just turned 18, playing basketball on a scholarship. It didn't work because of, I had a lot of like, I had like an eating disorder. I had trauma that I didn't even realize I was carrying, you know? And I'm so grateful to yoga, because that was really literally, I think, the only medicine that kept me off of paths that were really, probably would have been really unhealthy and harmful to me. And it was kind of the thing that always brought me back and like regrounded me. So I'd like go kind of like surf over there, you know, and being really honest, like I'm really open book about that, vulnerable, right? Like people who know me from back then are like, even my late granny Margaret, she'd be like, you were a party girl. You were, but you're not anymore. She'd say that. She'd be like, you were a party. Yeah.
Same. That's literally how I found yoga. Became my anchor point outside of going partying all the time. Because from like 20 to 24, like I was doing my own thing. I was looking for comfort externally, and that was like found through temporary vices. And yoga started replacing going and partying all the time, and it was my anchor point. And I think a part of me was like detoxing on the mat at one point, and just like full on like shaking, sweating, crying, and like, I look back now and I'm like, oh wow, like I was like releasing a lot. So I totally see myself in your own story,
and not even knowing that you're releasing a lot, just being like, oh wow. But like once you learn, you're like, oh wow. Like that's the thing too, is like learning about trauma, right? I think people need to understand it logically too. Like I didn't before, and I went, oh, that makes total sense. And then you can remove some of the shame around it. You're like, oh, well, that makes sense why I did that, you know? And then you can remove some of that, like, and it's not to take the responsibility away. It's actually to go deeper into that accountability, to be like, well, now that I know, now that I've been disillusioned, I can find tools. And going back to your question, it's like art and entrepreneurship. That was healing for me. It was like, I had to do a lot of shadow work. And I was so grateful for that. So I went to the tribal college and I was just like motivated. And I also swear by this, they say our brains don't fully develop until like we're 25.
Oh, yeah.
The parental cortex. So like I was 25, I was like, I want to go back to school. Like I was teaching yoga in the city. I was working for the Knowledgeable Aboriginal Youth Association, but I was kind of like, kind of still like teetering. And it was like when I went to the tribal college and I turned 25, I was like, I'm going back to school. I'm getting a degree. I don't know exactly. I thought I wanted to do law because I was like always been radical and like I want to fight for my people, like the land back. But then through that process, I did an Indigenous Studies program, Native Studies leadership, and it changed my life, man. Like I walked in and there was like all tribal instructors, like a Lummi elder, a matriarch in her own right, Sharon Kinley, and they saw me and they were like, don't, all this cultural knowledge that you have, who you are, bring that. And that was the first time as an Indigenous person where I felt so valued in an institution. And that's why I sing that praise. I'm like, we don't have to give up who we are when we walk into spaces.
True.
That's actually our superpower, and that we should be bringing that every time. And if it's not received and reciprocated, then you have like permission to leave or to make an exit or to maybe go in a different path, whatever works for you. But now I'm seeing our people create our own spaces.
Exactly.
Right? We're creating our own economies. We're creating like podcasts and movements, and it's like in our own nonprofits and our own like Vancouver Indigenous Fashion Week, Indigenous Fashion Week in New York and Santa Fe. So we're creating these spaces. There's like a renaissance happening with our culture and our art. So that was it for me. I was like, I was always, and then I had flashbacks of my childhood. I was sitting in my room making jewelry, and that was my escape from the hard stuff. And I didn't realize that at the time. It was like books and just sitting there. And then I would go to the flea markets at the church and sell my stuff, like my little daisy chain things, right? So I always had like for like $2, like, buy myself, I want some junk food money, like that was my
something.
Yeah. And then my parents had, they're entrepreneurs too. They had an ecotourism business, like cultural. And so like I made things and sold it in there, like earrings and stuff. So my dad, he was like, later he was like, oh yeah, you've always done this. And I've always, like, my aunties taught me, because that's just our culture. Like we make things, right? We're making regalia. My aunties were Shirley Brown, Tess Brown, Mia Hunt. They're artists and weavers. And so I was like, loved being around them, hanging. My mom sewed. She made all our regalia. And so I was like in it and didn't see that. And I think some of that was my own internalized racism and lack of value that I realize now, like a shadow, that I wasn't seeing that value in that because of projection from sometimes family, but also from the outside world that like we need to get this education degree to go work in corporate, to make money or to like, fight for our land, like, kind of that path. And that's what I thought. I was like, I have to do that. Now I'm like, no. My healing was like, it opened me up. I'm like, no, like I can make art. And so this is like, if this is my story, I had no money. I was done my master's and I made over 200 pieces for that potlatch in 2017, beaded pieces, and I gifted them all away at my family potlatch.
Wow.
Yeah. And so that was my kind of intro to say, okay, this is my over a year and a half of bead work, maybe more, and I'm gifting it all away. Now I feel like I can sell. Like it was kind of my initiation.
That's actually really... So I think of that concept of in yoga, like always providing a selfless service. And then it's like that good karma or like that good flow of energy. And it sounded like that was kind of, you provided like things selflessly and now look at like what is now returning to you. It's like that, honoring that flow of energy.
Thought of it that way. Yeah. That's so cool.
No, it is really
it's very
cool.
Cyclical. Yeah. Thanks for
No, because I was talking to, side note, my brother, I was trying to convince him to tip. I was like, make sure you tip people because it's that flow of energy and I'll always return back to you and don't be so restricted. But I know it's coming from like a state of survival, which I also grew up in poverty. So we also understand that. But yeah, I love that. So from gifting those pieces to now creating Copper Canoe Woman today, first, could you tell listeners what Copper Canoe Woman is if they haven't seen it or bought a piece.
So we sold these earrings that I'm wearing. If you can see them, if you're watching, these are like my salmon ghost earrings. So I'm like some are made out of acrylic and abalone shell, but we make adornment art, So we use I use dentalium, I use cedar, I use acrylic, I use metals, precious and copper, and then I also now I'm starting to make like larger body chain, like garment pieces, skirts and things for people. Honestly, that came out of I don't know if you've seen up on the thing last night. I dedicated that to my late aunties who were matriarchs. And they died tragically, Leona Humchet and Val Humchet. And the last time I had seen them was at Vancouver Indigenous Fashion Week. And I created that collection from a place of grief. And so when you asked me about how did you get to this place of way of seeing, I was like, I could feel myself being triggered into other grief and loss that was unresolved because, as Native people, unfortunately, oftentimes we lose a lot of our people. And so how do we deal with it? And entrepreneurship and art has been my medicine. So I know now I have tools. So I'm like, as soon as I feel that trigger and I want, I'm like, you got to make art, girl. You got to turn that pain, that grief and loss into something. And it's okay to feel sad and it's okay to do it while you're doing it. But it's the alchemization of that. It's like, okay, this is there and I don't know where to put this. So I'm going to put it into this. And that's what art does. And that's like when I say that was the medicine for me. So I was like, when I started doing it as a college student and then I got pregnant and my son was a big motivator for me because I was like, oh no, now it's not just about me. I need to provide for a child. So I was beading and I sold I made $12,000. I just so I had a job, like a 9 to 5, and then I'd bead in the evenings, and every piece that I sold, all the profit went to my savings, and then we bought a house with that was our down payment for our house, and that catapulted us into out of poverty because we were living in a 600 square foot apartment in student housing. And then we were like, my dad, to give him full credit, he'll be like, remember, Lucky, I told you to buy that house. I was like, you were right. Thank you for pushing me because now I have equity. Now I have things and I think that's something he told me. He's like, no one told me to do this growing up. I didn't have people because people weren't doing that in his family. He's like, so I'm going to tell you. So that's that generational wealth thinking too. And so my art, so when people say, oh, you can't make money, I was like, no, I bought a house and I paid for my beadwork, paid for my down payment. And it got me out of student housing. It got me out of poverty. And then things just started to build. And I said, I can do this. And people responded. And I think that's been the biggest healer. So what is Copper Canoe Woman? We're making fine art now. We have a show in Seattle, Generational Love at Tidelands, owned by Matika Wilbur, another Indigenous woman. So it's the first and I think only art gallery owned by an Indigenous person in Seattle. And she gave me an opportunity to do my art there. So when I say we're creating spaces, that's what I'm talking about. Now I'm like, thank you, because my granny, she could have filled 10 6,000 square foot Tideland spaces with her baskets, but no one gave her that opportunity. They were underselling her for her baskets, and she was in survival mode, and she had 15 kids to feed, 17 kids. So she was like, no, I'm just going to sell it. And we see that with a lot of our artists in the past, right? And now what we're seeing is this renaissance and this reclamation that we don't have to be starving artists. And that's the thing I want to we shouldn't be poor in our own homelands. We should have our basic needs met, shelter, food. We should be loved, those human rights, right? And so for me, that's what I'm saying. It was healing. It was this empowering thing where I'm like, I can make money, provide for my family, and do something I love. Heck yeah.
No, you're living the dream that you created. But also what I'm hearing from your story is you've had women throughout your life really speak life into you and validate your dreams.
100%.
I think sometimes as entrepreneurs, like if you don't have that validation or that feedback from other people, you may be like questioning if what you're doing is like, the right thing to be doing.
Yeah.
And so maybe for the entrepreneurs that don't have that initial feedback or don't have mentors or even aren't really connected to like who they are as an Indigenous person if they don't have their family, like where would you suggest like starting?
Ooh, that's such a good question. I love that. What I would say if I was sitting down with an entrepreneur that was like there and struggling with that was like, I know what that's like to even have people whom, and I feel a little sometimes uncomfortable telling this because I don't want to make people look bad, but it's part of my story.
Yeah.
So, people in my own family mocked me for liking big statement earrings. And I mean, and we have jokes, like natives like to joke. We're funny,
true.
like so like I see these, like I just shared a video of this lady with these big earrings. She's like, look at my big,
I saw that TikTok.
So, it's funny, but it's also like, if I had let that jab, like hurt me and like internalize that, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. Because now it's almost kind of like a chip on my shoulder in a good way, a healthy way, where I was like, I turned that, used that little bit of like a wound or whatnot, and to say like, yeah, I do like big earrings, and I turned it into a business. And so sometimes what people don't, just because they don't understand it yet, they don't get it yet, doesn't mean that they won't. Because now, like those same people, they're like my big, like they're my family, but they're like biggest supporters, and they see it. They're like, no, like this is what you're supposed to be doing, and they support me, not pushing me like in different places and spaces. And so I think that sometimes part of our karma is to like not fall into the trap of like going to those dark places of like being insecure. And it's like, it's normal to feel that way, but like, what are you doing to alchemize it? So if you're feeling like not accepted over here, then go and like out of your way to find people that are going to accept you. Go to spaces where you're celebrated. Like intentionally do that. That's what I did. I didn't just like, you said these women, right? Like I went to those places. Like I moved myself to them, and I talked to people that I seen where I wanted to be. I was like, and I listened to them on podcasts or on YouTube. I was like, that's what I want. Like I can name someone like, Matika Wilbur is one of them, Jennifer Younger, and I just seen them and like let their journeys inspire me, and I'm like, I'm not trying to be them, because what I'm trying to actually do is just do what they're doing, but in my own way.
In your own way.
In my own way. And I think that's the biggest key is like, yeah, we're supposed to mimic, we're supposed to like, especially when you're first learning. But at the end of the day, I like love like Andre 3000. He talks about this, like emulate as much as you need to when you're first learning. After a while, you have to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
You have to be willing to go to those places of insecurities, like the shadow that we were just talking about. And I'm saying this to you, if you're listening, like go there and be vulnerable and put yourself out there. Because even if it doesn't hit and people don't reciprocate, you're growing from it.
Exactly.
And that's what I say to my team, because they'd be like sad sometimes if something doesn't sell. I'm like, not every design is going to hit yet. Maybe we have to pivot on how we're marketing it. Maybe we didn't show it the way, we do. Maybe it's not reaching people's feeds. And I've learned that lesson too, where I like went to Santa Fe and people are like, these are all new. Like, I've never even seen this. I'm like, I released these last year. Like, they're like, we want more of this. I'm like, oh, I didn't do enough to push this yet. Just because the first few times didn't work, it doesn't mean. So you can't like project in those wounds and like lower vibrational places onto the experience. You have to be like use a little more discernment.
Or like create stories of like what's happening.
Yes.
That's something that I'm trying to dismantle in my own mind. It's
that's
is this a story I'm creating about someone, or is this a relationship I actually have with them? Or can I even go find out more information and like communicate it rather than like projecting a story onto like a person? But it's cool that you also relate that to your art and like how you use every piece as also a lesson within your entrepreneurial journey. And like I think that's also something I'm learning too, is like being okay with making making mistakes and being okay with being human and failing.
Yes.
And I'm like, take me off the pedestal of perfection you've put me on because we're not perfect.
Yeah,
But I also think Indigenous women are held to not the same standard as other people. We are really put on a pedestal to like always be attached to like the values of who Indigenous people are.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like made me think of like, oh, is there a way to like perceive ourselves as humans?
Yeah. Well, I think that's the healing that needs to happen too. Like it was the grace I was talking about. And I think the first place it kind of goes back to that thing is like, if you're going to be able to show grace for others, you have to show grace for yourself.
Yeah.
So if you're sitting there, you know, and I'm talking from a place of freaking, I've done this. I've judged people. I've been angry. I've acted out. I acted up, acted out from a place of wounded, right? And regularly, you know, even in like my relationship with my partner, you know, my relationship with like people in my life, some of my friendships, my best friends, like, you know, they have been the biggest mirrors, and we've been able to heal through some of those platonic friendships, like where we both have practiced on each other of like where we're projecting and like getting to the nitty gritty, right? So that's what I was saying too, is like, maybe it's not like the best place to start with some of that work isn't like your people who've hurt you or harmed you, but maybe with people who you know are already safe.
Right.
That could be a nice place to practice. I talk about that, like practice with safe people that you know are like emotionally intelligent. A lot of the things too that we don't learn growing up because of trauma, and we're reclaiming these healing practices, but they're not perfect. And so I have a nonprofit called Rooted Resiliency that and it's amazing, and we're just you know, it's all Indigenous women on our board. I'm the co-founder with my best friend Anna Lee Brady. She's Mandan Hidatsa Rikara, and we're on this journey together. And she's one of my like safe people that like we practice. Like, you know, our relationship has really shifted. It had a lot of wounded feminine energy from both of us in the beginning, but I'm so proud of that friendship now, because it's like, and we talk about it. We're like, man, we're good. Hey, we're you know, like we joke, right? But it's like, we talk about how it's been this journey of like able to alchemize it and be proud of ourselves to have those uncomfortable, difficult conversations that often we avoid because no one taught us critical thinking. We're coming from people who had trauma brains too. And like, so that's what I'm saying. Like, if you can do your own work on what is trauma and how it impacts the body and brain, start there. Like if you're starting a healing journey, maybe you're not ready to go to your own place, but maybe starting to think about it here. And then you can start to feel it and how it shows up in your life and guides you, right? Like, because I don't like to say people is like, so you need to start dealing with this. It's not that. No, it's more like, what is it? Having that cognitive understanding, and then that growth can happen. And then you'll find your pathway to alchemize it.
Asking those questions initially.
Yeah.
And I think being gentle with yourself. Yeah. Like not like going
That's it too. And that's like what we're saying about the women, like what you were saying about Native women, like we can only take people as far as we've gone.
Yeah.
And we can't give people grace if we haven't even learned to do that for ourselves.
Exactly.
So if I'm judging someone or I'm feeling, I'm like, oh, what is that saying about me?
Right.
Like, what am I thinking, or what do I judge in myself that I don't like in this, what I'm seeing? Right. And so those like people that are really like our elders, there's a lot of people in our community that have done that work, and you see it in the elders, and they're like, they don't judge. Right? They're
they don't.
They don't. They're like, and we come like from council culture, and it can be very hypervigilant, and like, but that to me, like, we need to get past that and not do that to our own people, especially our women, is like giving people opportunities, because we had washing ceremonies in like Haíłzaqv where people had traumatic events, we've washed them. We also had reparative pathways, restorative justice. There were ways to bring, like, you think our ancestors didn't fight around? Like, they had conflict. They had things where like harm happened. Like, how did they deal with it? Right? And I think we're living in such a fast-paced world and we project our hypervigilance. It's like, well, the first place you could start is yourself.
Exactly.
Like, if I the more grace I give myself
Mm-hmm.
to be human,
Mm-hmm.
the more grace and empathy and compassion I can have for other humans.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm just constantly like beating myself up,
Mm-hmm.
right? Then how can I even, like, if I'm talking to myself bad, saying mean things, like, how can I even extend that to other people in my
Right.
family or my life? Yeah.
The words that you speak to yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes we're not even conscious of it, right? And like,
Mm-hmm.
I like sometimes I do this activity sometimes on a full moon. So you definitely, if you want to do it, you go out, do this. You write down things you don't like about yourself.
Mm.
And then you write beside them, what's the antidote to that?
Mm.
So if you say like, oh, I don't like my body, I'm struggling with that. Like, what is the thing? What's the affirmation that comes from that will antidote that to heal that till your brain starts to message reframe it,
Mm-hmm.
right? But if we're not even conscious of the things we're saying,
right, because that's a part of the shadow side is those unconscious patterns and thoughts that we have about ourselves and each other.
I've had a friend, like, they were like being judgmental, and they were conscious of it, and they were saying that, like, man, as much as I judge other people, it's nothing compared to what I do to myself.
No.
And I remember like that shook me, that helped me. I was like, yeah, you're right. Like, people who are the most critical, oftentimes, like, inside them, it's on them.
Mm-hmm.
They're doing that to them. And so I say that when I see people being hurt or acting out, I'm like, oh, like, including myself, I give myself that grace, like, I'm so far from perfect too. Like, I struggle. I'm like, oh, why did I do that? Why did I say that? And it's part of the neurospiciness, but it's also like, then that's where I get to practice giving grace. I'm like, you're human.
Yeah.
Like, it's okay. Like, if you have an opportunity to make it right, or you can course correct now, you can change behavior. What's the regulated thing to do when you're in a place of like feeling, or think on it, or take some time to ground,
some stillness,
before you respond.
I love that you bring that up, because I've been hosting some medicine circles with Indigenous women. And so there's been these circles that we're having, and there's some sharing circles, but the elephant in the room is sometimes the violence we inflict on each other within our own communities. And so I love that you're bringing up tangible tools for people to actually do and hopefully reflect on within themselves.
Because it's okay. I think we like we were saying earlier, we have to learn to give young people grace, especially when we see them flailing. And it's such a double-edged sword. Like, even in the art community, like, let's talk about fashion here for a little bit, because fashion can have a lot of ego, and it can have a lot, and like, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, the ego has to exist, right? And even like, we're not always trying to be humble, right? Like, there's times when we should shine and we should stand in our light and our power.
I love that you bring up the word humble.
Right? Like, we don't always have to be that, but like, it's like about, for me, it's about like, and even me, like, I struggle in it too, because like, there can be some lateral violence and quick, like, to use words or name call or even be reactionary. And so for me, it's like the emulation part is like, well, if like, say we're talking about like people emulating or being mad about certain things, and we're projecting, and I don't think just like band-aiding and putting a thing over, be like, we all just need to rise together, we all just need to get along. I was like, no, we need to have uncomfortable conversations and safe spaces and talk things out if people are there and willing to do that. We all need to do our own work. We all need to, and Lisa Robinson, who's my aunt and the director of Cots Common, which is a family healing center, I've sent lots of trainings with her. She talks like for frontline workers who are in the healing field, Indigenous people, she talks about that. She says, you can only take people as far as you've gone. If you're not cleaning out your basement and doing your own work, then you can't help people who are going through that. So you need to like be the best, whatever artist, therapist, lawyer, podcast, you have to be doing that constantly. And and that's what they say, doing the work, right? Because it is work, but it's so worth it, because and then you could take rests from it too. Like, you don't always have to be doing the work too. Like, I want to say that too. But that's where I think our people need to get to, is like, sometimes, this like grace needs to come from us, extend, but also we need to kind of get to a place of like, acceptance too, radical acceptance of like, we aren't always going to get it right.
Mm-hmm.
And we just got to accept that there are going to be tensions sometimes. It's going to get uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not like, oh, it's not like being okay with that, but it's like, I have the tools and the trust and the confidence that I can sit in uncomfortable situations where there may be lateral violence happening. But at the end of the day, we got to trust the process that we're going to get through this and work through it. And that takes practice.
It does.
It does. And discipline.
And I think it also comes from willingness.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people
100%.
can work on, even me, I can work on myself all the time. But for me to like, let's say something happened between us, for me to actually like want to come and communicate with you, like for me, maybe it's easier for me to just block you and to, you know, unfriend you and never look at you again.
Yeah.
And so for you, like what makes you want to actually do the work to like heal that? Because not everyone, I think, thinks that way.
No. And that's okay, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think that's like, we're all mirrors for each other
Yeah.
too. I think that's part of it is like kind of using again that emotional intelligence is like, we just accept where people are. Like radical acceptance is that for me. It's like, that's just where they're at and it's okay. And like, I'm okay with being in the void of like, maybe I'll never talk to this person again. Maybe this relationship, you know, and what all we can control is like how we turn it on ourselves.
Yeah.
That's it. Right. So it's not like taking a hierarchy of like, oh, you know, they're just being this, you know, we tell ourselves the stories, right? We're like, they're blocking me, they're this or that. It's more so like, okay, what was my part in this? How can I do better next time? What did I learn from this?
Exactly.
It's that like internal dialogue of that healthy, like there's something it's like we talked about karma. It's here. This lesson's there. It's happened a few times. It's showing up. It's a pattern. What do it in here that I need to work on? So then it actually doesn't even become about that, you know? But also like if you want to, like one practice that I do, a tangible practice is when I'm in conflict with someone is I'll think about this person, you know, and I'll say, like, let's just say like Shayla has love and forgiveness in her heart. I have love and forgiveness in my heart. And even if nothing comes of that, I just send you that energy. I think of you in that way and then extend it to myself. And then it creates this kind of thing to regulate, right? Like sometimes there, and then it shifts the paradigm, the energy, so that I'm not coming from a place for me of reacting and being like, I'm going to block you, I'm mad at you, you know, or I'm going to go gossip and talk, you know, whatever the thing is, right? To get the dopamine fix. So the regulation can be that. And that's helped me a lot, you know, to think about people, to think like, so, cause you know, especially if you're mad at someone, right?
Yeah.
Right? Like, and so it's not saying I forgive you, it's saying like, I know that you have that and I have that because everybody has that ability, right? And
coming back to the humanity of like the relationships. And,
exactly.
I love that you also reclaim it in a way that's powerful for yourself to look like internally, and then you get to know yourself even on a deeper level. And I love that you've mirrored that with like the people that you work with, and it sounds like you have a really strong community around you and you all support one another. And we saw that last night through your show. Could you speak to a little bit of the collection that it was and what it represents?
For sure. So it's the Generational Love Collection. And so it's all about, you know, we kind of stuff we've been talking about. We pass on trauma, but we also pass on love. And love is the higher vibrational energy. And so the collection, when I was doing it, I was like thinking of all these women that I loved. I was thinking all these like parts of them and things that I seen. And that's like too healing for the brain, right? Because you're like thinking about people and like in a loving way and what that inspire. And then when I was like, you know, thinking about the people who wore it, like uplifting like the models and the crowd, right? Like I'm like, I want them to see themselves. So it was cosmic beings, it was cosmology, it was deities coming down from the sky from our cosmology stories, like Mitla dancers, and like there's like lots of deep stories with it. But that's what it was. I was like telling the models, I'm like, imagine you're like this deity or this goddess coming down, and you're coming to bring treasure to the people. You're coming to share your gifts, your message, whatever, right? So like embody that. And I said, and however you embody the feminine, That's how I want you to show the piece on the runway. So when you feel moved, because it's different for everybody, right? And it kind of takes on its own thing and its own movement. And the piece, like, I believe everything has spirit, even our inanimate things. Like there's this theory we have at the tribal college, and it's like it's about inanimate objects. It's the object relations theory. So it's like, for example, I always use this one with my cousin Nuučaan Reed from Bella Bella, amazing artist, just one of my mentors, and I just love him so much. We just have such deep, beautiful talks all the time. And he said to me, we were talking about the cedar tree, and he said, the cedar tree, we go to the tree and we ask it for its life. And then when we take that block of wood, so we take it and we tell it what we're going to do with it. And then we take that block of wood and we say to it, okay, your life is over in this way, but now I'm going to breathe life into you in this way. And you're going to be a mask, and you're going to be this, and you're going to have this new life. So that's the object relations theory, right? That things have spirit and that we give it. So it's the same thing with the jewelry. It's the same thing with the art. Like we're breathing, putting parts of ourselves into it and sharing our medicine to the piece. But then once it's like gone, it's out there. It's gone. Like we don't have control anymore. We just have to let it. So when I'm like, I just give it over. It's like, it's yours now. You interpret that how you want to see. And my hope is that it brings healing when people see it. And people were saying that, like, I hope that people feel empowered when they see it on the runway. I hope that people are inspired, that they can, do their own interpretation of whatever that is. I made some headpieces and some belts, and I made them a little simpler because I was like, I wanted them to see the way I did it. But I was like, if you buy it, like add your own stuff to it, and you want to wear it out in the world.
No, it was beautiful. And you could definitely feel like the spirit of something there, like on the runway. I was like, this is more than just fashion. And that's what I love about Indigenous fashion and design is it's storytelling, but it's also connecting and transferring like who we are as Indigenous people to like, it creates like a whole different impact.
It totally does. And people, and because we are spirit, we come from spirit, we feel that. Like, even if we don't say, I just don't know what it is, but I feel that's something.
People were crying in the audience last night because they could definitely feel it also through music and the sound that you were.
Yeah, and that's another art form too, right?
Yes,
like we had DJ Cookham sharing, and she helped me with my mixes, and I was doing the lineup, and so and then the beautiful humans wearing the pieces. And so I talked to my cousins last night, and we lost two of our matriarchs in a tragic accident. And I said I was feeling sad before the show. I was feeling some grief. And so using discernment, I was like, listen to that part of myself. Like, why am I feeling so much emotions? I was like, oh, of course, this collection's all wrapped up in my grief from my aunties.
Right.
And it's also my grief from my grandmothers who are both gone. And it's also my grief for, other people that I've lost in my life, but also it's the alchemy from moving from grief to power,
exactly,
and to empowerment. So it's the grief doesn't go away, but now it's this way of showing it in this beautiful flowy through garments on a show. It's like, okay.
It's like the continuum of emotion, and it's really cool how you can take your pain and like transform it into something beautiful.
Whatever that is. It could be on the yoga mat.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
Maybe it's a flow. Maybe it's a meditation. And I think that's what we need to kind of tap more into as Native people and just any human beings, that we have alchemy in us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And to like flow with it. I feel like anytime I'm stagnant, it's because I'm not releasing in some form. I love that you throughout this whole conversation, you've brought up obviously your grandmothers, your aunties, we've brought up matriarchy, but I'm curious, in your own words, like, how would you define the word matriarch?
Oh, I just think of like a noble woman. I think of someone who's has cultural humility, but also in a way that is understands that they don't know everything. That's what I say with cultural humility. They come in with like, and they also. I seen my cousin Margaret yesterday, and she was helping, doing healing in the back. And I think of her like just in this moment because she's a healer. And I had a little bit of a trigger warning here, but I experienced a sexual assault in my 20s. And my mom brought my cousin Margaret to me. And in our culture, in the Nuučaan culture, when a girl comes of age, the chief they put her in all white and they lift her up to the community. And then the highest ranking leaders are the chiefs. They wash her feet to show the community how precious she is, and that she needs to be, that the highest ranking person in the community would get on their knees and wash the feet of this person, this young woman. And so it's to show the community this is how she should be treated. So when that assault happened to me, my cousin came over and she washed my feet to remind me to go back to that place of like, because I was in like, like shock, and I get emotional talking about it because it's still there. I've done a lot of healing work with it, but it was that ceremony that brought me back to my sacredness, that even though this thing was put onto me, that I was reminded that I am sacred and that I am loved and that I am worthy, and what happened to me wasn't me, that it was something that was done, and it brought me back into my body. And that was a ceremony that we did. So it wasn't just for, and she spoke to that, like to remind me of also my innocence, that sometimes when we have harm done to us, we lose that. So when you say, what is a matriarch? I think of those women that remind us and bring us back to that part of our sacredness in the creation that we all have in us. Right? They're like, you feel them when they're around, right? They're like,
totally.
Man, so it's and they're, that's just it right there. It's like someone who reminds us to come back to those teachings and bring balance to the world. They move through the world, reminding of the balance, and in a way that's really like loving. And that's it for me. And I come across them all the time. My aunties, those two aunties that I lost, like they were the biggest cheerleaders. I mean, I think that was, I had to come to terms with like what the loss was. And it was like not seeing their, like I could hear their voices like, oh, hey, beautiful. And just love you so much. Because they were matriarchs for that.
Yeah.
They made everyone feel good. Like not just me, like so many people talked about that. And they made you feel, they lifted you up. Just like my cousin came and she lifted me back up.
She literally lifted you up.
She did. And so that's a matriarch, is someone who does that for the people. All the people. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that beautiful story.
Yeah.
I mean, that is really beautiful.
Thank
I
you.
feel like that's what we need to return to. And maybe that will also help us heal those relational wounds that we have within each other.
100%.
For people that are wanting to support you and follow Copper Canoe Woman and everything that you're up to, where is the best place?
Okay, so if you're gonna want to follow art and you want to know that, go to Instagram, TikTok, Copper Canoe on TikTok, Copper Canoe Woman on Instagram, Copper Canoe Woman on Facebook. And if you want to follow my community wellness work and nonprofit work that I'm doing with these other matriarchs that are like amazing on our board, rootedresiliency.com. And we want to do some stuff, and I want to collaborate with you. We're going to talk about this after, to do some community wellness work here in the Coast Salish territory, across the border, and here. So we're all about healing and reclaiming wellness and redefining wellness from within our old worldview. So those are the kind of where I'm at. And yeah, so like if you want to get in touch with me about delivering like workshops or like whether it's art workshops, that's the Copper Canoe Woman Path, but also through Rooted Resiliency, we do have facilitators and people that, or if you want to, like what we love to do is do community collab partnerships.
Yeah.
So like let's host something together. Bring your resources, we'll bring our resources, and we'll make it bigger for the community.
Totally.
And so that's like, we're always looking for community partners. And yeah, we're wanting to, anything where we can just like lift the community up. And so, yeah, those are the places. And yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your story. I feel like I also am learning a lot, and I'm going to take like a little bit of the tools that you offered and implement them in my own healing journey.
Please do. Yeah.
And also I bought a beautiful purse from you last night. So thank you for that. I'll put all of Vina's details here in the chat below and make sure you follow her on Instagram. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Shayla. Gayasika, Wallace Gayasika, to you, to this work. Keep it up. I'm really proud of you. You know, you're doing really good work for the community, for your family, for your lineage, for the future generations. So I just want to encourage you and just let you know that, right? And you should be really proud of yourself because you've done just amazing things. I know you're going to keep doing amazing things. And I just want to thank all the listeners out there for supporting this awesome podcast and this awesome movement because, you know, I know that's really important to for our people to like hear and see themselves in these places and spaces. So thanks for showing up.
Hi.